everybody, Kaiwaza with you. Welcome back to my channel and to another video. Today I'm unveiling a new project of mine. Still kind of a work in progress, but I'm comfortable unveiling it now. And it is something based upon Paul Gauguin, who was a French artist in the late 1800s, very early 1900s, that I have really kind of a love affair with. I know the world sort of has a love-hate relationship with him. I don't have the hate, I just have the love. I mean, I understand why they do, but I just have the love. Because for me personally, I've given up trying to make a video explaining my passion and my interest and my intense feeling for the life of Paul Gauguin and how much I identify with certain things and how much, for me, I mean, role model is maybe not the word to use, but he's iconic in his thoughts and what he actually did in the art world. Suffice it to say, if you really want to know about the life of Paul Gauguin in Tahiti and his work and his life, I'm gonna link it like right up here and maybe also below in the description. There's a documentary, it's on YouTube, called Gauguin in Tahiti, The Search for Paradise from 1967. I've watched tons and tons of things about Gauguin and movies and read books. I have a million books about Paul Gauguin. That documentary is the most succinct, it's less than an hour long, the most succinct and the most, to me, discussion of him that I resonate with and that I really feel. He lived in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Seriously watch that video and you'll understand about him. But I think he was just so impactful to me because it's an example of somebody who really had a passion, really had a commitment that went beyond, and a drive, a desire, something very deep in them that went beyond everything he knew, that went beyond friends, that went beyond family, that went beyond the land of his birth and the culture he was familiar with, and that just drew him to the opposite end of the earth into what were actually very difficult circumstances, and then to not find what you thought you were going to find there, and yet to make it work for you, both personally and eventually professionally, although not really in his lifetime, but eventually after his death, as with so many artists, people came to understand and appreciate what he was doing, but not really when he was living. And not just the work that he did, but he also was one of the first people, I think, really that thought of himself in a way as sort of a product, or thought about his image of his image that he presented also as a product. When he was in Tahiti and did a lot of his paintings and had those experiences there, when he went back to France for a couple of years thinking, I'm gonna make a name for myself, everybody's gonna go gaga over these amazing paintings and I'm gonna become famous, it didn't exactly happen that way, and people were sort of appalled by his paintings, or they just didn't understand it, or they thought they were savage and primitive and like, what is this stuff? And he still created, he went back to France for 2 years, still in that time period, tried to create an image. He had a very young Javanese girlfriend, we think she was Javanese, with him at that time, and she would dress up in strange costumes and he would dress up in very dandy outfits or Polynesian inspired outfits. They had a pet monkey that they would go around Paris with. He did these things, to promote his image as an exotic artist from, doing Tahitian things. And he had shows that were not very successful, and he also had his rented apartments, which ended up being sort of a combination living space and studio, where he exhibited all of his artwork and tried to sell things from that space as well. So you can sort of think of it almost as an early tiki bar, really, what he was doing and trying to sell the paintings and the sculptures that he did. Then he goes back to Tahiti. Oh, and while he's in France, he has this idea also, like, oh, I need to write a book about my experiences, but not just a book, like sort of like a journal slash with some legends slash with some poetry and images, and call it Noa Noa, which meant fragrant. And he tries to put that together and says, I'm going to market that, and that's going to help to sell my paintings, because there'll be this book associated with my time and my adventures in Tahiti and my life there. And it didn't exactly go that way. I mean, he did finally get everything written. Long story about that, but it didn't happen until he actually was back in Tahiti. So it did come out eventually, but not while he was back in France. Then, he's in France for 2 years, and he goes back to Tahiti saying, okay, I'm going to go back and I'm going to die there. Like, I'm done. I'm done with Europe forever. I'm leaving. Going back to Tahiti, even though it's not exactly what I thought it was going to be. I'm going there. I'm going to just continue to create and paint and whatever. He goes to even further out from the island of Tahiti. He goes out to the Marquesas Islands, Hivaoa to be exact, and he continues to create work there. Has other, girlfriends, of course. And then he dies pretty young, 1903, at the age of 54. And we don't exactly know whether it was just a heart attack because he had had several. People kind of assumed he had syphilis, although I guess they've recently, examined some teeth of his that had been preserved, and there was no sign of any mercury treatment, which a mercury treatment was what they did for it back then. So, maybe he didn't really have syphilis, or maybe he just never got treated. I don't know. Or he could have overdosed from laudanum, because he was on laudanum, as were so many people at that time. So we don't really know, but he did end up dying in Tahiti. But he was a very influential person to me, because for me, he had a vision and he created it. He didn't find what he was exactly looking for, but he made that paradise in his paintings, in his sculptures. He put out there what he did not see in the world and wanted to see in the world. So in his creations, you see the Tahitian people and the Tahitian women, beautiful and voluptuous and all of this, but in like a natural state. The old gods represented, which were gone, by that time, but he painted them. He had sculptures and things. He borrowed things from the Maori New Zealand culture. He borrowed some things from Easter Island cultures that he had seen. He had some Southeast Asian temple etchings and whatnot of people in various positions. He borrowed all these different things that he saw in other places and sources and put them into his Tahitian paintings, that they were to sort of represent this idyllic state of nature that Western man was so completely out of touch with, that we had no understanding of the life that just flows in a more natural way, in a natural state. I really loved him for all his faults that people can go on about, because he was a whiner. He was always broke, always asking people for money because he never had any, etc., etc. It's all true, but I just, I don't know. I feel something very special for him in my heart. And this project that I'm unveiling is something I've had in mind for a very, very long time. But was just waiting for the right opportunity because it's a radio station. I wanted to add to my already existing 3 radio stations. Hawaiian hi-fi with my Hawaiian records, Moody Mood music, with easy listening music, and Radio Green Goddess with all my new age spa sort of like ambient music. I had this idea for a long time of doing a musical recreation of the project, but he never saw it to fruition because he had wanted all his artist friends initially in Paris when he decided to go to Tahiti to come with him and create what he called the studio of the tropics. He initially wanted to do a studio of the South in the south of France, which they kind of did in Brittany, actually in the north, but just like a house or community with several artists, and that's all they did was, create stuff, and they put all their energy into their art. He said, let's do it in Tahiti. That's the place to do it because it's going to be free, fruit's going to fall off the tree, the land hardly cost anything, and the fish jump up out of the ocean into your fish nets, and free love everywhere, the Polynesians, like, it'll be great. And all we have to do is sit around and do our artwork. That's all we have to do is spend time on our artwork, pull our energy into that, do wonderful art, sculpture, whatever it is you want to do, send it back to France, make money, send us more stuff, and we just stay here and live in this paradisial sort of creation. And they all agreed, but then they all dropped out of the idea one by one as it got closer to go. And then when it was finally time to go, he was the only one. So he went by himself. So he never actually created the Studio of the South, but it was a dream of his. And my radio station that I've started and had in mind for a long time is kind of the soundscape of, I imagine mentally, of the studio of the tropics. Sort of like if there were an artistic community that he had been able to found that maybe would still exist somehow, but at that time period, around that time period, the feeling of what that would have been like. So it's a very personal project, and it's eclectic. It's a combination of weird music that you wouldn't necessarily put together, but like Radio Green Goddess, the sound is very overlapping. Like you're hearing one sound and it melds into another sound, which melds into another sound. It's kind of a visual audio rather idea of this place, this mythological place that doesn't exist, the Studio of the South in old Tahiti, South Pacific, tropics, whatever. Which is that there are segments of actual just natural sound, just the ocean waves, just the waterfall, the rainstorm, the sounds that you would have heard in this little enclave of huts or whatever where these artists are living and creating. You would hear some drumming from, a festival in a neighboring village, down the road. You would hear the Tahitian drums or jungle drums, what have you, going. You would hear also, in my mind, somebody would have brought like an old gramophone, right? And you would hear, what would they play, when they weren't creating or they were taking a laudanum break or whatever, like old records that somebody would have brought in a ship, maybe they brought the latest cha-cha record from, Latin America or whatever, or they might have some old recording of some Tahitian music or Hawaiian music or something, and they would play these songs on the old gramophone here and there. So you hear that as well coming in and out on the radio station. You would hear then kind of as mood, you hear exotica, of course, classic exotica, what we think of, your Martin Denny's, your bird call, tiki music, like that's the ambiance. Also, you would hear, what do you call it? Like sort of ambient Cafe Del Mar, lounge down tempo kind of music, that sort of electronica that has a vibe of tropicalness, exoticism, something in it like that, has that element. So you're hearing a combination of all these things, because it is like if you just sit back and close your eyes and dream away, it's sort of the soundscape of this place. Did I even say what it's called? I don't even know if I said. Gauguin Gardens. Gauguin Gardens. That's what I'm calling the studio of the tropics. It's Gauguin Gardens. I suppose in your mind you could even just listen to it and think it's like some subdivision in some tropical place, you know, the Gauguin Gardens. That would work too, I suppose, but I like to think of it as sort of my salute to the vision of Gauguin and what it meant to me personally. And this is kind of like that soundscape or that present. As far as like what you really kind of hear musically also, I would say it's sort of, I mean, tongue-in-cheek, it's kind of like somewhere between, geographically, it's somewhere between Bali High and Skull Island, right? And maybe a little bit south of White Lotus, a little bit north of Cafe Del Mar, and just down the road from the Tommy Bahama. Yeah, that's kind of where it is. So I don't know. People may hate it. People may not get it at all, or people that don't know anything about Gauguin or whatever would listen to it. I don't know what they would think. I don't know what they would think. I don't know. But yeah, Live 365 finally ran a really good deal where if you pay for a year up front, and they were doing a discount on top of that and some other kind of discount, so it ended up being a really good deal. And I said, I'm ready, because I already had some artwork, the idea, a playlist going and whatever. So I was kind of ready to just jump on that. It's been up for a little while, but I haven't said anything about it because there wasn't enough music on it. I'd been uploading some things every day, and it takes a while, and I think I'm up to like 500 or 600 songs on there, which still is not enough. It's still like a work in progress, but I am comfortable now announcing it, and if people tune in, there's enough music and variety going on there that I'm comfortable. Now, granted, it's going to grow much larger over time, but like I'm okay with people starting to listen to it now. I have enough music, the artwork, the station IDs and things, so it's going, it's up and running. You can visit Gauguin Gardens if you want to. It is my personal, very heartfelt tribute to a gentleman who was kind of a scoundrel. I understand that, kind of a low life, whatever. But I think he really gave me a gift. I think he really gave the world a gift and an idea, which is that if you don't see the paradise that you're seeking, you know, create it. Create it. And that's what he did. And I appreciate that. So check it out if you're interested. It'll be linked below. Gauguin Gardens. And, you know, maybe you like it, maybe you won't. That's okay. I don't even know how much I'm going to promote it. Like, I don't know if I'm going to do an Instagram page for it or Facebook page. I don't know. I mean, it could be fun, but I already kind of have a lot of that stuff going for the other stations. I don't know. But this is just purely a labor of love for the gift of Paul Gauguin to me personally. It's very inspirational to me. So I hope that he would enjoy it.